All right. Hey, everyone. Um, Very nice to see you today. Welcome back to the Ecosystem Builders webcast. We're live with another episode. I'm Vaughn Mordecai, and today's guest is outstanding. We're talking to MJ Khan, who is the founder of Alliance Mentor. Hey, MJ, how you doing?
Hey, we're doing very well, Vaughn, and thank you for having me on your webcast.
Yeah, I'm excited about this. Today we're gonna dive into alliances, and it's a topic that I don't think actually gets enough airplay in the industry. We revert to partnerships a lot, and I kind of want to hear about your experience. So let's go ahead and get started. MJ, who are you?
Who am I? Yes, it's a great question. Absolutely. I mean, so thank you for talking about Alliance Mentor. I mean, of course, that's my experience of 20 years of partnerships, right? And alliances and partnerships. Not something that I woke up, and after high school or whatever, and decided, hey, I'm just going to go and get a degree in partnerships. They didn't really exist, and I don't know if it still exists. But I fell into. I mean, I was always keen on building relationships, partnerships, and ecosystems, and also sales, which I think is quite a strong element of partnerships. And honestly, from there, I started my career way back, with in sales. I worked at Microsoft and IBM, Salesforce, as well as AWS, and I kind of went into it and doing partnerships, building out, sort of scaling through partnerships to build revenue. So I call myself a builder, if anything else, which kind of plays on the ecosystem builders here. Yep. So I basically started off doing that, and then it just continued and really enjoyed it. Was successful at it. My career with Microsoft was great because it actually transitioned me in from the UK to the US, and from there on, I've basically been enjoying continuing building ecosystems. It used to be alliances, and now call it ecosystems more than anything else. So here we are now, right? And we're having a conversation. I think I've learned a lot for the past 20 years or so. I don't think I could have had this conversation. All the being burnt in the past and learning. So I think this is a good time.
Yeah, it's alliances is a different thing. I look, before we get too deep into this though, what I'd really love to hear, what are you into personally? I mean, like what kind of inspires you and kind of drives you when you're not at work?
Yeah. I'm glad you asked that, because it's not all about work, right? It's about what other things drive you. And yeah, so listen, I play a lot of tennis, for example. I'm competitive in that way, so I do that thing. I'm a family person. I've got 3 kids, so there's that as well, right? So
That'll keep you busy.
I'll keep you busy. So if you've got kids, as a family is important to me. That's I always say that, that's a priority. You gotta prioritize that, even if you're working. If you ask me, like, again, 15, 20 years ago, wouldn't have known any different. I think work is work. But I now try to prioritize what's outside of work, because it reflects what you do in work and whether you're building and whatnot. Because one of the things ask me is, how do you, figure out how to manage partners? I said, well, you learn a lot from your kids, by the way, because how to influence people and so forth, even though they're kids. So I think that's important. The other part is, I mean, I've enjoyed music and singing. So, when I get time, I do that as well. So it's kind of fun for me. I used to be able to perform in a band, and we used to have fun on the weekends doing that, even while I was working. I do rehearsals. So you have to have a passion, I think, outside of what you do for work, hopefully, that is kind of different from what you do at work. I think using your right brain, left brain is kind of brings some creative aspect to it. And it's healthy, frankly. So I try to fulfill those things as well, which is kind of like, staying active, using the creative side of you, because you do get creative at work as well. And then, I think really is, I feel like if you're driven as an individual, which I certainly am, you'll definitely try to focus in on, certain goals that you set yourselves, whether it's personal or whether it's business orientated. So I try to put those together every year. And, I think it's okay to also not meet certain goals. It's okay to revise them, but you should have those. And that's kind of what I do. So kind of personal side of things, I try to fit those in with my work, whether it's building a business like I am with Alliance Mentor.
Wow, that's good insight. And frankly, I wish I could sing. That is gutsy. I love music, but boy, I suck at singing and well enough know it. Okay, so let's talk about Alliance Mentor. What does the company do? I'm not sure that everyone would know, so let's break it down. What do you do for Alliance Mentor, and what's the value proposition that you're providing the people that you work with?
Yeah, so as I said, Vaughan, I mean, most of my experience has been working with some of the CSPs, the SIs. If I look at my first, going to break it down at a high level. The earlier part of my career was very much focused on building out VARs, SIs, even when I was working at Microsoft, and then working with the large account resellers back then, and looking at such a multifaceted partnership, and it was very alliance focused as well as one-on-one with. Maybe you're partnering with, I don't know, Accenture or a Deloitte. And then there's a second part of my career, which I think I was like, oh, I can get another feather in my cap when I was working at AWS. And they said, let's start talking about technology partners. So the latter part of my career was really around technology partners and very much focused on data and AI. So I started doing that. So getting a bit more granular with that. And so with that in mind, Alliance Mentor, I remember basically being laid off from Confluent, and when I was working there, and I was like, I could do this on my own and maybe try it out. And so I basically went to the partners and a lot of smaller partners, SaaS partners, and I had one reach out to me and said, can you help me out? I'm really trying to navigate AWS here and also Microsoft and GCP. And I'd love your help because you seem to have worked at most of these cloud partners and it's just so complex. And I said, yeah, it is. And do you know Andy Jassy? And I said, well, look, you didn't even I knew Andy Jassy. I don't think he's the one who's going to help you. I think it's more about pulling the right levers at the organization, understanding their programs. It's really going to help you. So I think that what I started to do, I was successful at helping them out. Basically, I helped them. All they wanted to do was really scale. They didn't want to hire 6 salespeople at the time, which was what they were thinking about. And they knew me and they knew I could basically do business development, but I do it in a strategic way to help them scale through partnerships. So instead of hiring those 6 people, can I be the person who basically enables a few other partners and also goes to CSPs to leverage their programs that they have so that we can be as optimized as possible. So that was what I did effectively.
Okay.
And we turned their business around and they started to grow, but they didn't need to hire any salespeople for a whole full year. So, and they grew their pipeline by 35%. So they were happy and they started to become a strong partner. So that's kind of how it was formed. It was really kind of, oh, I can do this, and trusting yourself to be able to have the knowledge to do that. And then also being, motivated to sort of do things on your own as well. That's kind of what I want now. And you've got to basically find more opportunities like that, because it could be a sprint or it could be a longer term. And that's what Alliance Mentor does. It really takes it. And then also, I think the second piece of it is going global, because one of the aspects I have is I understand the nuances that exist in EMEA and so on APAC. So coming from EMEA, if people want to launch, one partner wanted to launch from North America into EMEA, and vice versa. So that was something that I basically had experience in as well.
Okay. Wow, that's impressive. I find that when I start dealing with the hyperscalers, it's fairly complex and you never know what you don't know. And so you constantly find yourself just a little bit underwhelmed, or well, it's overwhelmed, but under delivered, right? You struggle to get the traction that you really feel like you need there. Okay, so cool. When you start talking about alliances and partnerships and things like that, channel, what is the difference for you call yourself Alliance Mentor? What's the difference between alliances and these other terms that get thrown around the industry?
Yeah, I'll be candid with you, Vaughn. I mean, Alliance Mentor was available and as a domain, or as an ecosystem mentor, or whatever it was, and people get what Alliance means, or partner mentor, or whatnot. Then it started going very blurry and very vague. So I think Alliance Mentor, what it was, and I like the mentor aspect of it. It's kind of like an advisor. It's not telling you exactly what to do. It's up to you how you want to do it. In the end of the day, I'm not anyone's boss. It's just helping advise and being a mentor for if mentors you reach out to, and you decide how you want to work with them. But alliances, to answer your question, versus ecosystems, I mean, it's the traditional way, I think, was alliances. So back in the day, or I don't know, go back 20 years, or how IBM would like to call it, perhaps, we partner, and we have an Accenture, and you have, maybe you're doing that partnership for 10 years, and it's an alliance. And then it's an alliance with SAP, and it's a one-on-one alliance. And that's fine until something really happens to that other partner or whatnot, or it's a one-on-one, but all your eggs are in one basket, and you live and die with that partner and that partner relationship, in terms of the stakeholders and the people who are really the ones that you're going to be working with on the other side. And there was a lot more tenure back then as well. So people would stay in those partnerships, and it'd be like, I've walked the halls of Accenture for 10 years or 20 years, and therefore I know everybody, and I can call so-and-so on speed dial. Well, I think things have changed, as you know, and now it's more of a force multiplier, right? So yes, great that you know Accenture really well, but we also know that people who could be your partner manager or whatnot might stay for a couple of years and might move on, might move into another role internally. So you've got to understand the programs, and you've got to understand the structure of the organization. That's number one. The second thing with partnerships is that when I talk about the force multiplier, it's like, if you're a small partner, if you're a SaaS partner, and you're trying to build overall relationships, partnerships, and sales, you might be able to go to an AWS and say, okay, well, let's go through your partner program, which could take 12 months to become a top tier partner. But what about if you already have a very fully baked solution and you want to go out there and scale it? Well, you could work with other smaller partners as well and build those partnerships if you've got the bandwidth. Why not actually start building those partnerships with a trusted partner already in the ecosystem? So let's say, for example, I know it's a Rackspace or it's a Accenture already, but it not quite Accenture. It could be a Slalom Consulting that's a national SI.
Yeah.
And you just got an opportunity to work with that trusted partner, and they're like, who are you? You're ABC partner, but you've got a cool solution that doesn't compete with us, and we can work with AWS. So it's got that tri-play going on already, right? So I
Yeah.
think it's about that ecosystem and figuring out what your ecosystem looks like. I describe it very similar to a solar system, if you like, and use the analogy there that, if AWS is the sun for you, right? And then basically you need all these other satellite planets around you, make sure they're circling around you and supporting you and endorsing you, especially if you've got customers that you're trying to target. And if they can all be a force multiplier for you, you can eventually be able to grow and flourish as well.
I love that. I love that analogy. That's really cool. Okay, so one of the things that I really like about your business is the mentor side of this. Talk a little bit about your mentors and how you got here through those mentors, and then how you try to mentor others.
Yeah, that's a great question. Look, I mean, like I said to you in the beginning of my career, I mean, it was very much learning from the leaders who were out there doing these partnerships. And, I think a lot of it was even way back to when I was, I was even a student selling phones. I remember mobile phones when they were big and they were just growing. And I had a CEO, it was a company called Car Phone Warehouse back then. And they were basically talking about how the CEO was very passionate about being very customer focused, and everything it changed the industry in terms of, basically being centrally focused on what the customer needs, what the customer wants. And I think I learned from that. I learned from those people, and it basically, then I moved on to even like working with some of the leaders, like even Benioff at Salesforce, right? He's still out there and he's always innovating and always looking at how to innovate, and also learning how to make sure that you're relevant and being out, being available to reach out to. So a flatter structure was really, really positive. I mean, there was the sort of Microsoft ecosystem that was growing, and I worked with so many leaders there, whether it was, in the ecosystem and partnerships, and it grew on. But I think it's really when you've gone through the stages of being mentored by individuals who are leaders in the organization, our CEOs, and you learn from their mistakes as well as their successes. I mean, I remember Microsoft, give you a good anecdote, was we were sort of jumping up and down, and Balmer was talking about the fact that, we're probably going to get behind on the cloud, and we're not going to quite make it, and Google's stepping up and whatnot. And how do we shift gears? And, and I was thinking to myself, so, how are we going to do that? And but it's more about, rather than chasing someone's tail, it feels like, let's not look behind and look at others. What I've realized in my experience is most of the mentors I've had have said, just look and focus on what you're doing rather than look left and right. It's a bit like, I describe it as a runner in your race in a 100-meter sprint. If you turn around and look left or right, you're going to lose that 1/100th of a second or whatever it is in your focus. So stay focused on what you're doing. You do need to be aware of the competition, of course, but you're probably going to the race already aware, right? So you've done your research. So think about that, and you just sort of innovate along the way. So I think that it's those are the people that sort of I look up to, and have really helped me on that journey to then, and then my own mistakes. I've kind of learned from those.
Now, do you spend? How do you go about identifying and working with others to mentor them? I mean, what's your magic sauce there for bringing the industry up as well?
Yeah, it's really down to people that either reach out and earlier in their career and in partnerships, and they want to grow it. Maybe they want to become a mentor themselves in the future in terms of partnerships, and then understand ecosystems, but they've just not gotten enough experience under the belt, or they have an ambition to go say, oh, I love SIs, but I really kind of go on into tech partnerships, and they think the SaaS is the right way to go. How do I navigate things like a marketplace and so forth? And I think it depends on which direction they want to go, but I try to focus on what they want. And also, to your point, ask about what their personal goals are. Like, what do they want to do? Do they want to be, in a lifestyle, or do they want to be working pretty hard to build their own company? Not everybody wants to do that, right?
Right.
If they want to be independent, and if maybe they just have a couple of target companies that they want to reach out to, and it may be like a Microsoft or a Google, and I say, okay, well, these are the people you should talk to. I do believe in a network to help you and support you, and I think that that's where I can guide them. And I think there's a lot of assets out there as well. So I tell them, build your own assets. Like, you see a business plan, just a simple example. How could you improve upon that? What do you think? This is about 2 years old now. Things have changed, and that's a lifetime. How would you build and make this a good plan? Things like a go-to-market, sort of just like pipeline management, things like that. There's so many tools out there. Which one do you recommend using for this partner versus another partner? And do you think they'll even use it? So or do you want to just use a spreadsheet? So I think let them sort of decide how they want to focus their career, where they want to take it, or if they want to work for just, sometimes they have an aspiration to, I want to work at such and such company, right? And so
Yep.
I'll help them get the path to there, or a similar company, or a startup or whatnot. And then again, there's also those that just say, I want to do this on my own. How do I go about doing it? And I say, find your niche, find your
Yeah.
differentiator, right?
I've got a lifelong obsession with, a 20+ year obsession with HubSpot. So if they ever call me up, man, I'm right
Yeah.
there.
Oh yeah. There you go. Well, let's pick a shout out for that.
No doubt. No, but that's really cool. I like that idea of just kind of being focused on who you're looking for and who you
Mhm.
want to work with. That makes for a much more enjoyable experience.
Yeah,
So
sometimes looking cool.
let's pivot a little bit. With regards to you've mentioned ecosystem, you've mentioned alliances. How are those two things kind of intertwined? And if you've got alliance managers, because I see these roles get posted all the time. If you're an incoming alliance manager, how do you navigate the world of B2B ecosystems? What do you think?
And you're talking in general, where we.
Well, just, how are they intertwined? First off, ecosystem and alliance, and then for new alliance managers, what do you recommend? Like, what are the first few things they should really pay attention to?
Sure. Yeah, people often ask is, what are the three most important things an alliance manager should have, or a partner manager? And I say, well, look, first of all, it's you're out there to create new revenue streams as well, right? Or build on the existing revenue streams. And one that doesn't get mentioned very often is, I said, learn to prioritize your time, because you can easily holes. And so that's not a textbook answer, but it's really about.
Oh, it really isn't. They're called that role is often called the hardest job in the channel. So
Yeah.
yeah, you have
Right.
to prioritize.
Yeah, it is, right. And then the third thing is, for me, it's very important, is to build trust. And building trust could mean building trust with sales, with your stakeholders, with marketing, with whoever your stakeholders are externally. But try to build that trust quickly, because, and that means if you're going to say you do something, go do it, and do something else plus that, because it will help you as a ecosystem, and as an alliance partner manager, to just be able to then become more relevant in your role. A lot of people don't understand the alliance manager role. It's like, what does it do? I mean, have you tried to explain it to your wife, your sister, who is not in that role? It's an interesting one, right? It's like,
They
still
never
don't
they never get it. The closest thing I could ever get to is Best Buy. You
yeah.
know, you know how Best Buy sells other people's stuff.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a good one. I've used Best Buy, these other ones, but yeah, so that's a great analogy, right? So you're probably a way better explaining it than I am. But yeah, so that's what I mean. So people don't quite know, even inside the organization sometimes, unless, everyone's bought in, to what partnerships is, and you are working for, let's say a Microsoft who's been doing ecosystems for so long. But I'd say establish that foundation of how you go about doing that, with your stakeholders, so that they understand the value you bring, right? See, but what can you do to, and that could be things like asking questions to your CRO, your sales leaders. What are your metrics? What are
Yep.
you gold on? How can I help you reach those goals? Go to marketing, do the same with the technical teams and others, right? Customers, support team, etc. As many as you can with your stakeholders, so that they know the value, and then you can basically hit those overarching goals. Because there's going to be bound to be one or two goals that are going to actually align, and so you're helping them, and then vice versa, they'll help you. So it's kind of a give get. So that's how I think you start to build a bit of trust. It's not like, I've got these goals, I've just joined, and let's you tell me and just do a download, which is fine in the beginning. I totally get you have to do a bit of that, but I think then with that, if you can align to those folks' goals internally and then externally, of course, to your partners, taking that same model, I think you'll hit the ground running. So I always say do that as much as possible. Understand the targets. If it's, what is it? Like, not like, oh, I've got a revenue target. I'm saying, what is it? 2.2 million. Where are you at with that target? Can I help you? I think the biggest thing that I speak about, which I did at another partner leader conference last year, was really how to align with sales, right? That's the biggest sort of, like, I've had people even at Salesforce tell me, or one of the top salespeople say, "Oh, MJ, I'll do what you do when I retire, because you guys just go ahead and have lunches with people, right?
You're like, good
And
luck.
just don't touch my customers, though, because basically I want to, I'm okay." So anyway, that's kind of what hopefully that answers your question.
Oh yeah, no, that's spot on. So I love to hear about people's stories, and you've worked across all of these different hyperscalers or worked with them, and you've been in cloud forever. You've probably been around since it, not to age you at all, but probably watched a lot of this come up, right?
Yeah.
What's, if you think back on that experience, what,
Mm.
give me a oh crap moment, or oh, we just did so, a moment where you're like, oh, we just did something that was more amazing than I realized it would be when we started out on this journey. Give me a story from your career.
Yeah, I think it's all about stories, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can tell the story. Excuse me. I think that's the key to getting people to understand. And I asked when I did mentoring as well, is like, tell me one of your stories, right?
Yeah.
So I'm glad you asked that. And I was going to caveat that with basically, I think that, you know, everyone's got something, and it could be that sort of is more interesting or different. For me, it was when I was at AWS, and I hadn't come across the situation before. I was basically out to recruit as many ISVs that were low hanging fruit for us, and we're out there trying to even reach out on LinkedIn, believe it or not, because we're building
Okay.
the partnerships and getting them to become stickier on the AWS platform. And that could mean bringing in partners that were basically, I had on-premise products and solutions, right? And then make them, SaaS, so they can be stickier on there. So we had this program built where basically I worked on getting them to SaaS, but also to have an SI partner to help make sure we could prove that value of the AWS platform, the POC, with an outcome that would be a case study. So that was pretty cool. And I was proud of that. But at the same time, there was one particular partner that was continuing to elude me. And I had reps pinging me and saying, "Hey, MJ, aren't you supposed to be helping recruit these partners?" And a particular partner that keeps on this, like, they're actually spreading a lot of FUD about what we do, and it's not accurate in terms of the integration we have. And guess what? They're actually going out there and working very closely with Microsoft, and there's a big amount marketing campaigns going on. So it's not quite helping AWS. And I need you to go. And I said, well, look, I've tried, and they haven't really come on board, and I don't know what it is. Maybe somebody else should call them or something like that. Maybe. But no, I mean, they were really friendly and everything else, but just wouldn't sign. It's very simple. You can go online and form up an agreement. We can figure out this. And there was about $12 million at stake in terms of pipeline that was on the table. Long story short, I figured that a meeting with the CRO would help, and well, someone helped me get a meeting with them, and I met with them at their symposium, and they actually were like, the problem we've got is we've got an exclusivity agreement, and so we can't sort of partner up with AWS right now. So we've got some agreements in place, and we can't go beyond that. And I said, "Oh, okay, that's interesting. I didn't know about that. And how long is the agreement?" And said, "Well, it's about another 5 years." So I said, "Oh, I can make sense now. Let's just work through around this, and let's really try to maybe use a trusted partner that's in our ecosystem, and we'll work through them and channel the opportunities through them. So you're not seen to have a partnership with AWS." And that's kind of how we got around it. But it
Oh,
was
wow.
it was an interesting way of getting completely blocked. But I wouldn't really have gotten the truth out of that until we basically had that meeting, and it was successful because we managed to build out more integrations. We managed to get some funding for that. We also managed to circumvent the situation that existed, which isn't really no one's fault, and then really got another trusted ecosystem partner who was very happy to take those opportunities and channel it through them because they're trusted on both sides. And it solved the problem for customers at the end of the day, because then the customer could then say, okay, well, this can work, and we can work with multi-clouds and so forth, and different partners. So I think that was one that it was like, oh crap, like you said, right?
Yeah.
I haven't come across this one before.
You're
But
like,
it
please
was
stop talking crap about us. But
yeah.
the relationship mattered, right? That's the thing. You talked about trust earlier. They only have a level of trust with you. You establish the relationship. You find a way to solve the problem, and then it moves forward in really positive ways.
Yeah.
That's an awesome example of ecosystem at work.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was, and it was live, and it was it was had its nuances, but definitely an interesting one.
Well, I like to wrap these up. We've got 1 minute. I like to wrap these live streams up with just providing people one tip that you'd give our listeners about building and managing alliances and ecosystems, and something that they can start doing today that would actually improve what they're doing, how they're managing partners, anything that you can think of.
Yeah, I think I'll say go back to what I said earlier. Figure out what the company's goals are, what the metrics are for your key stakeholders, and try and align as much as possible with your metrics, so that you are helping your team overall. So you're actually going in and you're helping your organization, and always thinking about the fact that do these metrics really relate to adding value to the organization and your customers at the end of the day. So I'd say focusing on that. There's one thing that we sort of forget is I'm living in my bubble. And what I've learned and I've forgotten in the past and where I've been burnt is, right, what is try and figure out, we can manage up and understand what those goals are, and be able to have a story, to your point, about why you do what you do. And stories will always resonate. So if you can weave those two things in, you'll be up for
absolutely the story on why you're the expert. Okay, so everyone, MJ from Alliance Mentor, that was great. MJ, thank you for being on the show, and for everyone listening, we'll see you next time. Take care.
Thank you,
bye.